Hello, welcome to the Metaverse, philosophy and spiritual-based podcast where we look to explore big ideas through verse, through dialogue, through exploration, with an open mind, different types of beliefs, question our own reality, ask such things like, why are we here? Is there more to life than where we're at or what we can conceive, what we think is and what could be, what is truth, what is love. We're going to be exploring tons of different big ideas, and I'll just hand it over to my co-host here, Sean.
Hello, I am your host, Sean Souls. Please be sure to check out the podcast at the_meta-verse.com, where we have our blog and our gallery and the previous videos of the podcast. And today is a very exciting day because it's our very first episode in the podcast.
It's pretty exciting. Kind of, getting settled into the idea of having a discussion about big ideas. I mean, not that this is our first conversation with each other on.
But I wanted to introduce you first.
Okay, sure.
Lover of life, a drummer. I just joined a band. I don't know what.
We're playing metal this time around.
What instrument are you playing?
Drums.
Drum as well. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I do a little bit of guitar, but mostly just for writing. I'm not stage worthy on guitar, but I've played tons of shows on the drums.
Recently enrolled in school.
Yeah.
Father of two.
School. Father of one.
Well, father of two. One's a child. One's a kid. One's a human. The other one's not.
Oh, my dog?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Bradley. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And he takes up a lot of my life. I'm a dog lover for sure. And yes, my dog Bradley. He's a great dog. Black Lab.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to actually work on this podcast because totally. Like we've been thinking about it for a while and
you've definitely done like the groundwork and getting the equipment and making the website. I'm definitely, what we've discovered through our friendship because we've been friends for a few years now.
Yeah,
is that we have intriguing conversations about things because we kind of see things from different perspectives, I think. Like for me, I'm terrible with technology.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I could never set up a podcast like this in my life. I don't like multiple cameras, recording devices. That's not me at all. I like thinking about big ideas and having discussions. But what we're gonna really, I think, learn more about each other as we go through this, even though we've learned about this with each other before.
Yeah.
But I think what we're gonna learn about each other is the amount of similarities we have in certain ideas, but also the amount of differences, just in our character, in how we view things. And so I think it's going to be exciting kind of getting a dual perspective on things, while also coming to agreement in a lot of areas too. But So I was very excited when you asked me to do this. And we should also mention, we're going to find other guests too. Like we've got friends who are big into a lot of these ideas. And I'm just really excited for the potential for the different topics of discussion we've been discussing we're going to do. I'm very excited for our first discussion today. Maybe you could kind of introduce what we're going to be talking about today.
Did you say your name already?
Yeah, you said it, Nathan Sands.
Okay, yeah, I did. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
And you're Sean Souls, if we didn't say it. And I just love that name too, Sean Souls. And Nathan Sands, it's almost like Sands and Souls. That's a good tag.
Could be like a Sands and Associates, like type.
Sands and Associates, Sands and Souls Associates. Yeah, I don't know. It's got a bit of a ring to it, but also I like our name of the podcast. I think is kind of nailing down what we how we want to go about this podcast and kind of dig deeper into things. That there's everything is complex but also simple. That's kind of how I think of the idea of metaverse, like this idea of
it's supposed to be beyond universe.
Yes,
kind of
beyond.
like that's like beyond.
But also like a breaking down and a recognition of different pieces involved, and the fact that it's so much bigger than we can wrap our heads around.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even though you can shrink things down, it's almost like the more you shrink, the more you realize how big things can be too. I
Yeah.
think that's a bit of a metaphor for how we're going to conduct our dialogues and discussions. But you've kind of taken the lead on what type of topics we're going to be discussing. And so
Yeah.
I'm really excited to discuss them because for the most part, we're just coming at it from a regular dialogue. Like we aren't really fielding ideas to each other beforehand. We want this to be as genuine as possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
We want it to be just a real-time conversation. You know, there's probably going to be times where we can't think of a word that we're trying to describe, or we lose our train of thought, or we want to reflect on an old idea. Like there's no real parameters of how we're conducting this
Yeah.
podcast, right?
So
So
that was a lot.
that's a decent introduction into
Yeah, that was
what we're
good.
trying to accomplish here, maybe.
I just wanted to ask, like, how was your week like today? Like from
good call.
this perspective, like.
Yeah, my week's been super busy. Like you said, I'm in school now. I quit my job in the forestry. I've had lots of different jobs. When I was younger, I had a child at 18. So like you said, I'm a father. I'm a young father. I had a child at 18, and it really like changed my life in the sense of it forced me to kind of push myself. It forced me to grow up and mature. And one of the decisions I made at that age was to dedicate myself to making money. Anyways, like a means of survival, right? So I have this child now. It's like, okay, I can't really think about myself. I need to provide for this family I'm into. And so I kind of went into construction. I had the idea of I wanted to be a police officer. That's totally changed now. Like I've had, since I was 18 and now I'm 29, I've had this very profound change in character, I think. And we'll kind of get into those as we go further into the podcast. But personally for myself, I've found that I'm not the same man at all like I was. And there's many reasons why that is. But being a father was a big one. And I started dedicating myself towards making money. I did construction. I did overtime work. I did part-time jobs on the side, just trying to get ahead. And it really had an effect on my relationship with my child's mother. And so I've always kind of, my whole life kind of focused on just like making ends meet and really like providing has always been my ideal. And then recently I had this whole shift in how I was going to conduct my career, I guess we could say, career life. And so I went back to school. So now I'm taking social work. This week so it's a full-time course. I quit my job of forestry of 7 years. I was kind of like a lumberjack, I'd call myself, dealing with saws and equipment and stuff. It was, basic man's work kind of thing. Not that it's basic, there's a lot to it. But now I'm trying to utilize my mind outside of what it was before. It wasn't like I wasn't thinking beforehand. I've been a steady reader and thinker for a long time. But so now I'm going to school. And I've only been going for a couple weeks now, but it's into social work because I have a heart for people. Like, I love people so much, and I've really come to really love the differences in people. And I see a lot of hurt right now. I feel like in our generation and in our city, there is a lot of depression and angst and I don't know, maybe not like a bitterness, but I don't see the type of community I really wish was existing right now. And so I feel like this kind of work is more of my calling in the sense of I can now have a bit of an influence on how the community is going to be, propagated for the future and how, we're going to get into the discussion on spirituality and how our own energies can change somebody's entire life. One encounter can change somebody's whole life.
Yeah. Like, for example, like how we met, I wanted to get into that because I wasn't going to I wasn't going to church at all when I first like before we met.
Before we met.
Yeah. So like,
But we met through a friend from church.
yes, it was a friend from church. So like,
Yeah.
I went to an employment center and I was going to I was looking for work and was discussing some stuff about God and stuff like that. And
Where was he discussing this?
this was at the employment center.
Wow.
Yeah, and like
That is like him, our friend that I don't.
friend.
Yeah, I don't want to name him.
Yeah, it's okay.
What should we call him?
Dwayne.
Dwayne?
Dwayne.
Okay, Dwayne. Yeah, Dwayne. He can fit a Dwayne. Okay, so Dwayne, our mutual friend, who I recognize exactly what you're saying, his type of character. He's very, like, to think that in an employment center,
Yeah.
he's talking about these type of things, right, with you. That's very different. You don't normally encounter somebody who's like that.
But like, I don't go to church anymore, but I was...
So you weren't going to church?
I wasn't going to church, and then I decided to go to see what it's like, and I met a few people that became good friends, and
yeah, through the church. So he invited you to church?
Yeah, he invited me to the church.
Well, so the first time I met you though wasn't at church; it was at a Bible study.
Was it
right?
really?
Well, that's what I remember. I remember it at. I might have seen you at church. Because at that time I was attending church frequently.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time meeting you was at Ken's house, and that's where we were conducting a Bible study. I was leading a Bible study at that time. It was more. It was like, it was a Bible study that actually got kind of denounced from one church. Like me and my co-host got kind of pushed out of a church because of our radical ideas. Yeah, so we met at this Bible study. That's when I remember you, and then you came a few times to the Bible study. I'm sure you remember.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then we had the philosophy group at my place when I kind of started that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we've always just kind of stayed connected, and every once in a while we'll go out for lunch or something like that.
Yeah. But that's what I wanted to dive into the topic of today's discussion, which is the butterfly effect, like how things that just happen.
Yeah, the butterfly effect. Like this idea that there are these complex systems, and one minute change can affect the entire system, right? Like
Exactly.
Outcomes. What one minute change in a system or a sequence of events, one small thing that you wouldn't even consider to be significant. The chaos theory or the butterfly effect is kind of saying like, well, one small thing within a complex system will create a massive change on the tail end of it, kind of thing, right?
Like for example, like the top definition, and I'm using Urban Dictionary for the butterfly effect.
Yeah, because we're always going to use Urban Dictionary.
We're going to use Urban Dictionary because it seems funny.
That'll be our definition point. Well, I think that's a great resource to use, kind of, and to observe how we define things within the culture that we're in. So let's see what Urban Dictionary has to say.
So the top definition of Urban Dictionary is the butterfly effect. For the butterfly effect, is the scientific theory that a single occurrence, no matter how small, can change the course of the universe forever.
No matter how small, can change the universe forever. Yeah, that's like intense, right?
Yeah.
That kind of like says like every action I do right now, whether small or big, it could be whether I go to the bathroom right now or not, right? Or hold it in. Like these two very minute changes could have an incredible change in my future. Kind of thing, right? And leading into different tangents almost.
They had an example. It said a man traveled back in time to prehistoric ages and stepped on a butterfly, and the universe was entirely different when he got back.
That's an episode of The Simpsons, isn't it?
Is it? It probably is.
I'm pretty sure.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I'm pretty sure Homer goes in a time machine and It must be one of the Halloween specials. Oh, I should have watched that beforehand, or we should try to find it. But that's
Okay.
I'll watch it another time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he like goes in a time machine, goes back, and like steps on a butterfly. Even like they're probably trying to make it like the butterfly effect or anything like that. And then he comes back and he gets back to his modern world, and everything's different. It's an interesting thought. But so, do you think how real do you think this theory is? Because technically, we're talking about a theory here, aren't we?
Chaos theory is the theory that if like a butterfly flaps its wings like across from like somewhere, and then it like it
say in
causes
Britain,
it causes like a tornado far away
Right.
possibility.
So my understanding of that is that chaos theory itself, it's a theory, but it's proven in something like weather systems. Like I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that weather systems are so complex, and you can predict them. Like so, we have meteorologists who predict weather patterns, but small changes in the weather can make huge differences, and that's why they can't really predict that far ahead.
Yeah.
Because as the theory goes, one like flap of the butterfly's wings, like one change in the wind pattern,
Yeah.
even a small one, like a butterfly's flap, can like move across currents and seas and change an entire system. Like I don't know if that's true, if that's the theory put into practice, or if they just think because the weather is so unpredictable that even these little changes happening can make that happen. But like, do you think how true do you think this theory is yourself? And do you see that kind of play out in your life?
I don't
you were
think
kind
it's
of
a
connected.
theory anymore. Like
No?
I think it's
It's just so true. Okay. So in what way? Like, so you were kind of relating how it's true based on our meeting, how we met,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah, like how we met, and like it's not like if you're gonna compare this to something that's determined, right?
Yeah,
It's not
something-
determined. It's not a determined outcome. It's like a chain. It's a chain reaction that's undetermined. So
With so even it can't, so that's part of the theory then. And since we have a background a little bit in like Christology or whatever, I don't know what you call the study of
whatever you want to call
Christianity,
it.
whatever you want to call it, yeah. But like this idea that everything's predestined, right? Like I don't know if it's Augustine who's primarily on that, but there's a Christian line of thinking that like everything's predestined. Like, you know, even the souls God's going to save is predestined. So like what most Christians will critique on this thought is that like, well, that's not cool. Like, so like we have no free will. It kind of like goes against this idea of free will.
I don't think it does.
You don't think predestination goes against free will?
No, I don't think like butterfly effect.
No, yeah,
it's
no,
going to
that
cause
doesn't.
it to. You could still have a predestination
Okay.
with the butterfly effect.
Okay.
It just be
Interesting.
maybe your road to your destination is going to be a little bit different in a way, but it's like you could have like I always talk about destiny like
So
paths
do you
and stuff like
believe in
that.
predestination then?
In a way, yeah, but it's
a
not
way.
like it's not the same way as Christians believe it, I guess.
Yeah. So then, like, touch on that maybe a bit. Like, what do you mean by predestination? I don't know if I believe in predestination or on, like, complete free will, or like, you know, thinking about that. What's going to be included in my reading list is War and Peace. It's one of my favorite novels, and Leo Tolstoy was actually a historian. And he also became like a philosophical leader. He started like his own variant of.
Okay.
He started like his own variant of Christianity and became like a leader in it. And so in War and Peace, it's such a long novel, and at the end, he's also a historian. So he's a novelist. It's a story, but it's a story that takes place. The story takes place in Russia and France's invasion during the Napoleonic era, and he kind of brings a different perspective. So how we see the Napoleonic era, like how we learnt about it.
Can you explain the Napoleonic era a little bit?
So yeah, like Napoleon in early 1800s, he was the leader of the France. Like he was
oh yeah.
the emperor, and it like history doesn't really have a beginning. Like so, like from before that, the French Revolution kind of brought this Napoleon into power. He was a general, so he was a general who became emperor. So during his, I forget how many years, but his empire expanded, and eventually he got to Russia. Like Russia was kind of the final frontier.
Yeah.
Like he took over so much Europe and Asia, then he hit Russia, and Russia was the big kind of downfall for him. So we learned about Napoleon, and I think the common historical viewpoint of Napoleon is through French history. Okay, and so that's what Leo Tolstoy makes a major difference on.
Yeah.
He kind of tells a different story, because I learned about Napoleon in history class, but it wasn't the same as Leo Tolstoy's interpretation of what happened. And so he was a historian who lived in Russia. And so it's kind of like in war, right? Who do you hear from? And so like usually the victor writes history. I don't know if that's like a quote or something, right? But
yeah, usually,
like who writes history, right? Like who wrote history? And so we tend to learn history through the French side, because I think Western thinking is more developed through French thinkers.
Yeah.
And so Leo Tolstoy was a Russian thinker and a Russian historian.
Okay.
But he has a very interesting discussion in the epilogue of War and Peace that talks about free will and this idea of history and how you look at history. And he says that the further you look back in history, the more something seems predestined. Like in the moment, we feel like we've got decisions that we make, and like everything's free will. Like right now I can do this or this, and the outcome is going to be the outcome. Mm-hmm. But he says that the further you look back in history, like even if we analyzed our own life, when we looked at ourselves at say 18 or 19, and we analyzed like a decision, because we're already so far away from it, we recognize that decision was made that way and couldn't be made any other way, kind of thing, right? Like, even though right now we know we've got free will to make a decision now.
Yeah.
But when you look at things through history, you, like outside of the realm of time, I think you put something in a place in time, it becomes destiny, right? So I don't know, it's hard because I don't have the book in front of me, and I didn't, we're trying to keep this very genuine. I wasn't planning on discussing War and Peace and this idea of history and how predestination kind of is tied into the difference of free will. But I did want to talk a little bit about time, and this is kind of relevant to that idea that through time things seem more predestined. But how we make this relevant is that we're discussing two theories and two differences within the theories and how they apply. And so the butterfly effect and the domino theory.
Okay. Domino effect.
Or the domino effect. Yeah.
That one's not a theory.
Sure. And I think the technical term for it is mechanics theory. Or sorry.
Possibly.
Mechanics effect or something.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Just this, yeah. But both of them require time, right? So I wanted to kind of discuss how time is a factor. Like, so one, if we look at the definitions, like when we look at this butterfly effect, it's more, the idea of the butterfly effect is it looks at a much bigger time frame, right?
Yeah.
Like in the sense of like one small change can affect something forever, right? Like what does the definition say? Something
For the domino effect?
No, for the butterfly effect.
Oh, for the butterfly effect, it's the scientific theory that a single occurrence, no matter how small, can change the course of the universe forever.
Forever, exactly. Like this idea of like huge. And I think the domino effect, the domino effect is related to that in the sense of like it's more about the sequence of events. But the butterfly theory is more about like, it's less about like a big event causing another big event, like a chain reaction. It's more of this idea of subtle kind of effects that really can like almost snowball or grow into major differences. Whereas the domino effects kind of seems more like condensed, like not such a big theory, like forever. It's not really focusing on this idea of forever, although, of course, the domino effect would affect forever in the sense of each action.
Yeah.
Kind of. Anyways, why don't you give us the definition of the
domino effect is an expression or of meaning of one thing, person, etc. is affected in some way. All those surrounded, it will do the same. But this is according to Urban Dictionary.
Urban Dictionary, yeah.
So like, and also
what's the example they give? Or okay, go.
I wanted
for
to go.
definition.
Well, this is another definition, but it's an example kind of when everyone gets tired of Pizza Hut.
When everyone gets tired of Pizza Hut. That's an example.
Because Domino's, get it?
Because Domino's.
Domino pizza. I don't have an example here, but
that's funny.
I wanted to tell you. I saw this video.
Okay.
On a definition of the domino effect in terms of gratification. So like, they had a graph, and it was like it said like instant gratification versus delayed gratification.
Okay.
And
instant versus delay.
Yeah, and it said it was on YouTube, and the instant gratification is something that is fun quickly, but is the gratification for it is lower because it's not positive for you in the outcome. For example, like eating something or eating candy, right? Like you have a short gratification and then it just declines. And then like the delayed gratification would be something along the lines of like
delayed, like studying hard for a test.
Exactly, I had that written down.
Oh,
or like building a house, building IKEA
building a
furniture.
house,
You know, like examples like
Not
that.
something you get right away. It's more of like a working towards and accomplishing something.
Yeah, and it was like explaining like how the domino effect can be a habit of what you're doing that has a consequence. And it could be a good consequence or a bad consequence, depending on what type of habit you're doing. But like, so you can also have, I think you could also have like instant gratification that is also positive.
Yeah, that's right. Well, like gratification, then I think that's right. Instant, you can have it. I think the strength of delayed gratification is the amount of work you put into it.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and so I think like you can be grateful, but I don't think the grateful really ingrains itself.
Well, it's not really
unless it's more of a delay. Like the more work you put into it, I think the more you're gonna be grateful for something, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's not really what I meant to say by that, but it was like more like positive habits create a positive outcome.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
So then on the idea of positive habits, like so in the effect of dominoes, like we're thinking about how a positive habit kind of leans into the next. See, I always think of them in like when I think of the domino effect, it actually helps me to think about dominoes, right? and like the one domino hitting the next one is like an event to me, right? And so, like I said with both of them, they both occur in time, and I perceive the domino effect more in like an instant gratification way, maybe.
Okay.
But in this idea that it's very like each action connecting to a next action, and so more like in the moment. So
kind of like a film.
Kind of like a film. So when I walk away from here, right, like the conversations we have are it's like this is an event, and we're hitting this next domino, and so I don't know where this is going to take me, but it's going to take me to another event where I incorporate different parts of the last event that kind of like
But
continuous
I think in
series of
between
things.
would be the butterfly effect, in between events, because you never know how long you're going to be until you do that other event. So
And I would say I'd say the butterfly effect is kind of like an in-betweenness of those events where the dominoes are hitting, but also it's more of a large scale encompassing of the domino effect. Like more looking at not the events of each domino hitting, but more of like how the beginning of one domino gets to the forever domino.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
end of the
no end,
line
yeah.
of the dominoes. Whereas the
Yeah.
dominoes is more of like a there's like it's more focused on the events that happen in between. So I kind of like that. The butterfly effect is more of the in between where the dominoes hit, in between the events that occur in our life, but also kind of encompass the entirety of our life, like and not just our life, like from before our life, like how our parents' energies even and teachings and way of life, how that was ingrained in us as children, just like it was ingrained in them through their parents.
Yeah.
And how maybe this could get me to my story on how we influence our children.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to tell a story.
Okay.
I'll take just a breather and think about this.
All right, think about it.
Well, you asked me how my week was. And so we talked a little bit about how I'm in school. We talked a little bit about the differences between these two things and the similarities between the domino effect and the butterfly effect. But you asked me about my week, and so I really do feel like because for the last week, we've kind of decided we're going to talk about this topic.
Yeah.
And so just the fact that I knew we were going to have a conversation about these things, it's kind of been on my mind. And it's funny how I find that when something's on my mind, I tend to see it in my day-to-day. And so last night, I had a conversation with a friend, and we're going to call him John.
Okay.
And he had a conversation with his friend, a mutual friend. I'm going to call them John and Jay. John and Jay.
Okay, sure.
That'll help me kind of put it into mind. So I was out for a walk with John and my dog Bradley. And we were discussing a conversation he had with his friend. And he said, they were discussing something big too. Like, so we tend to get into some pretty big conversations. And they were talking about like previous, childhood memories and like really like kind of like foundational stuff of who we are kind of thing, trying to dig into the foundations of who we are. And they were talking about, they were saying, what's a motto? Like the question was from John to Jay was like, what's a family motto you remember? Or like when you were a child, what do you remember like your parents discussing? Or is there like a line that you remember your dad saying a lot? Or like what was something that really stood out to you as a child? And so Jay said that he remembers his dad always second guessing himself. So like always kind of like, the type of personality where if they went to one restaurant, he was like, oh, we should have went to this one. Or I should have ordered this instead, right? Like always kind of second guessing himself. And he says that really stuck out to him like as something of what his family kind of dynamic was. Like it was always like an afterthought kind of thing. And how my friend John like perceived that as like how the language itself is somewhat negative, and how that could be like that could create
what do you mean by language?
The language and just like the language, the pattern, it's not a positive. It's not really like the conversation and just the air of the family dynamics wasn't necessarily positive. Like it's not focused on the positive, like, oh, this was a great meal. Instead, it's like, oh, I should have got this meal. You know what I mean? Like looking through a lens of negativity. This was kind of what my friend picked up on. And then so I said to him, okay, that's great to kind of, this just came in the moment. And I think because we were discussing this idea of chaos theory and domino effect, I said, okay, like, it's good to kind of analyze our life and see how maybe our parents' language affected kind of our outlook. And I said, but what about you? What do you think when your children grow up, because he's got children, said, when your children grow up, what do you think they're going to say about you? And like, what type of conversation do you think your family's, because he was like, oh, that doesn't sound nice, like the negativity. I was like, well, what do you think your kids would do? And I think he kind of took a step back, like, oh, yeah, like, you know what? Like, I need to think about how my language is used and how, like, is it going to be a language of negativity, like I observed in this person's, right? Like, so like bringing it back around, like, you know, we can analyze where we've come from and how, you know, even language has affected, and see, I'd say language is more on the side of the butterfly effect. And I wanted to kind of touch on that, the metaphysics of these things, not just like the events. And I'd say the metaphysics is more inside the butterfly effect.
Okay.
That like a wind can affect, but I think emotions can affect. Language
Definitely.
can affect, and energies can affect things. And that's not really tangible, right? It's not like we can see something affect the outcome of something in a system. It's more of like an underlyingness to it. But anyways, we both thought about this because I've got a kid too, and that called me to think like, whoa,
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, like my kid's gonna grow up one day. And I remember things that my dad said, and I remember like the type of language or the type of energy in my household. Sometimes it was positive, sometimes it was negative. And oftentimes it was more negative than it was positive, right? And I think those things do play into me. And so both of us in that moment were like, oh yeah, we've got big influence here, right? And those kind of energies can really affect somebody's life, especially our own children. And so,
Absolutely.
And so then today, it's after school, I had an interview. I'm doing an essay project on, and I had to interview somebody, and we discussed like, he was an older gentleman, and that was the idea of the project, was to interview an older person.
Oh, okay.
And look at different events in their life, like life-changing events,
Yeah.
and kind of place them in different, and trying to find patterns in how, like, you know, like midlife we make these decisions, and like childhood we make these kind of decisions. It was a lot to think about and whatnot.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's what's been going on with my week and how these things have really permeated. But I'd like to hear kind of your input on this, on the metaphysics of these ideas, right? Like, because these things are hard to define, and how they work out in the world. And I really do believe that there's a strong force that underlies events, that underlies reality, that underlies time and space. Like there's something that we can't even really speak about or define.
Spiritual in a way.
Yeah, spiritual in a way. And that's where we're trying to understand these different things too. But like, you know, a way of almost defining it, I would say, is something like language, or something like love, or something like joy or displeasure, like depression.
Yeah.
Just like general feelings or outlooks or personality types, right? Not necessarily an event or how somebody acts. Well, I guess it's kind of how somebody acts, but mixed more into like a spiritual side, a feeling, something that you can't hold or grasp, right?
Yeah.
Something you can't define either. Like that's the
Okay.
trouble I have, is like this fact that we can't really
So
define
how would
these
you
things.
define, like, well, you couldn't really define it, but like how do you see the butterfly effect in love?
The butterfly effect in love, yeah, interesting. Well, I'd say in both positive and negative ways. You know, like I've fallen in love. And there's lots of different types of love, right? Like there's familial love, there's relationship
love,
love. There's like general love, like I love you, and I
Yeah.
love my friends. I also
Yeah.
love just people that I walk across and meet, right?
Yeah.
Like, but that's different than like an intimate love,
Yeah,
right?
intimate
And
romantic love.
Romantic love,
Yeah.
and or like the love of a child. Like there's different types of love, obviously. And my love for beer or pizza, right? Like
Yeah.
there's different types of love, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of that, I once wrote a blog about that.
Okay.
So why don't I plug my blog
Go
right
ahead.
now? Yeah, so, I've been writing a lot. I'm a published novelist, right? So I wrote a novel, science fiction. I love to write. I've been journaling for like 10 years now. And I find journaling just to be such a worthwhile dedication.
Now, how do you go about your journaling? What do you usually? Is there like a format to it, or like you just write whatever comes to mind?
Yeah, well, so I've got tons of books like this in like stacks of them in my home, because I've now created a system where I never leave without a journal. Like I go for walks with my dog and I keep a pad on me in case an idea strikes. So sometimes, for the most part, I'd say my journaling is like collecting ideas, or like if something hits me, I'll kind of write it down, or like, a discussion I want to talk about, or when I go out for conversations with friends. Sometimes somebody will say something that kind of strikes an idea in me, and I'll just write it down, and it kind of snowballs.
Yeah.
Often. Sometimes it's poetry, like sometimes I just get, I'm out for a walk and I feel inspired by maybe the mountains or the wind or something like that. And I just feel like, and I like using words and creating kind of a cadence that sounds nice. Maybe that's part of my musical background that kind of comes into effect
good,
too.
yeah.
I've written songs too, like I play a little bit of guitar, but nothing good.
When it comes to like journaling for myself, like most of the time it's just gratitude, like things I'm grateful for.
That's cool.
Because like in the new age like type of style, a lot of people write things they're grateful for. Because I'm closest. If I would put myself in a religion, it probably be closest to new age, but I'm not really new age. I just label myself as spiritual.
So like when you're writing something, like what's an example? Like what do you write?
For gratitude?
Yeah.
Just write anything that you're grateful for. Like you could write down like I'm grateful for family, I'm grateful for the universe, I'm grateful for life.
When you're writing, how often do you write something you're grateful for?
Usually I try to do it every day. I haven't been doing it much lately, but
when you are consistent, like have you gone like a full month of every day writing something you're grateful for on a journal? Or maybe not that much, but
maybe
like
not
almost.
A full month. Yeah, almost.
Wow.
Yeah, I've done it. I've done it a couple of times. Yeah, so like.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I write things I'm grateful for. Some people write down dream journals.
I do. So some of my journaling is dreams.
Okay.
I keep a specific journal by my bed for dreams. Although a lot of my notebooks, you'll find some dreams in there. And I always date things too. Do you date your journal?
Not always.
You should.
Yeah.
I don't always too, but I kind of keep them consistent so you at least like know where about this is. But because sometimes I'll go back and look at my journals and be like, oh, I was, like in this headspace in this year and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right? 'Cause we change a lot. And so I usually do write the day and the year. Because especially with all the notebooks I've accumulated now, I've like found old ones with no dates, and I'm like, man, I wish I knew even like what season this was and what was going on at the same time, because my journals aren't always like, even though sometimes they do include such and such, like, oh, I went bowling today, and oh, I went out with this person today. Sometimes they include that, but more so it's just like big ideas. Or
you should like go through like maybe some of your old journals and like print out like a paper on like your good ideas that you had, and you might find something that surprises you.
Well, I have I did when I wrote my novel, The Event Horizon.
Yeah.
That was kind of how I did it. I did look through my old journals. I left out a lot of stuff, but I looked through it for like ideas and kind of to get a general space of things. And because I wrote a lot of poetry. When I wrote the book, I wanted it to sound good. It's a lot of it's like grammatically incorrect and stuff like that, because it's more based on poetry. And if you ever read poetry, it's never really grammatically correct. The English language is a joke anyways. Like all our rules and stuff, they're all meant to be bent and broken. And like I had a phase of like reading Shakespeare, and like so to write like for me to write great poetry, you have to break the rules of grammar and whatnot. And so my book was definitely not like, your traditional type of novel that was written. It was more meant to be poetic side. But I really liked your idea of writing down gratitudes. I'm going to try to incorporate that into my journaling. Like, because I think, you know, mindset's everything, and like how we perceive things, and there is so much to be grateful for.
Exactly.
You know, like there's so much to be grateful for, but a lot of times we just focus on the negative.
That's why it shifts your perspective.
Yeah, shifting perspective.
It shifts your perspective on like what you're thinking about, and like it attracts more of what you're grateful for. So even if even if you don't have, this is when it comes into the law of attraction talk and all that stuff. But like
we'll talk about that another time.
We'll talk about that another time. But like I just wanted to say like when you write things, like you could write things that you don't have much gratitude for, and you'll get more of that. So you'd be like, I want to attract more, like.
Okay, so you think I should.
Anything you can think of that you lack of, and you'd be like, okay, I want more of this because I'm so grateful for what I had.
So is the theory on that because you're focusing on something and in a positive way, that there's like some type of metaphysical attraction?
Yes.
That comes. So it's like so in that sense, like, do you believe in chance or randomness? And in that idea, how does that tie into the domino effect and the butterfly effect? I would say that chance is kind of, or like luck, right? Or randomness kind of doesn't fit in to the theories of the butterfly
I don't
effect
believe in luck
and
either.
the dominoes theory.
Because luck is like...
See, there's something in me, though, that does believe in luck and chance. There's something in me that does.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I look at these theories that I also believe to be true, the butterfly effect and the domino theory,
but do you believe
those don't seem to fit.
Do you believe some of that luck is destiny instead of luck, or whatever you want to call it?
Some of that luck is destiny. Yeah, I do sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so I do feel like forces are at work. Man, I don't know.
Because like
I don't know what I
if
believe.
you're taking gambling into perspective, right? And you like look at a gambler and you're like, oh, that guy's so lucky. But like, this goes into another part of the law of attraction. But like when you're chasing something, you'll get less of it. So like if you're gambling, you might win a little bit, right? But if you're chasing it, then you get less.
Okay. And so more of like when you're just grateful for what's around you and you kind of have this energy of gratitude, things are more likely to come towards you.
Yes.
Is part of the thought then that there's a natural attraction towards contentment, or like towards like I think contentment's probably the best word to, like, gratitude and contentment kind of go hand in hand.
Can you define contentment to me for a little bit?
Sure. Like being grateful for what you have, not needing more, or not like stressing about what you don't have. Contentment is more okay, I am what I am, I have what I have, this is what this is, and I'm fine with that. It's like,
so you're saying being grateful is being grateful? You're attracting gratitude? Like you're attracting, I guess...
Yeah, being content itself would attract more. And what you're saying is when you chase something, you actually repel it. Whereas if you allow something to chase you, almost then. Exactly,
yeah. But like, in a way, like, for example, like somebody could be, I'm going to take the gambling, it's just the perfect example. You could buy a lotto ticket every month and win. But you could buy a lotto ticket every day and lose.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, you're chasing it. But if you just
you're more likely to win
if you don't play all the time.
Yeah, if somebody randomly buys you a ticket one day.
Exactly, yeah. Okay. Somebody could give you a ticket and be like, here's your chance.
Well, usually the case is, I don't know how I don't really play the lottery, but I think usually what seems to be is that somebody who wins the lottery is usually a random ticket. Whereas like, I know there are a lot of people who play the same numbers every week and have for like 20 years and they still don't get it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like usually it tends to be like a one-off, like, oh, I just got a ticket, right? But sometimes that's not true. Some people get it who played. I feel like the number is more so the random tickets. So there's this idea, and I think that's true, like this idea of when you chase something, it's less likely to come to you.
Yes.
The laws of attraction. And I think it seems to be true when I've started to analyze like relationships.
Yes.
And like I have found that when I feel desperate or lonely, like a need for somebody, that like they're running away.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to get even close to me.
Same
but
here.
when I'm confident in myself and I'm just grateful for like who I am or where I'm at, or especially if I do have a girlfriend, right? Like at a specific time when I'm seeing somebody, like, so there's no chasing involved outwards. There's a sense that like, that you're grateful, you're content, and people want that, right? And feel attracted to it. So you're more likely to find a woman when you have a woman.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I know.
That's one
totally
thought,
true.
right? It is though. Like it is. I feel like anytime I've had a girlfriend, the various times I've had a girlfriend, there's just so many options on the table of like other girls who want to be with you. That's true. But then when there's a breakup or you're single, like after a month of being single, you're more likely to have another month and then another month after that. Like
of being single.
Of being single. It's almost like it feels like that snowballs too. Like
it's another domino effect.
It's another domino effect. There you go.
There we go.
Or that would be, I think. This is time to just.
We'll wrap it up.
Well, why don't we? So I'll plug my.
We'll keep recording.
Yeah, I am still recording. I'm gonna plug my blog again.
Okay.
So like this is the beginning of the metaverse.
Yeah.
This is just our first discussion.
This has been a long discussion. It's
yeah,
perfect.
It's been good. I mean, we could have kept going too.
Yeah.
We're starting to get a little short, long-winded, or however you say that term. We went off on some tangents, but I think we hit on some good ideas. So this is the first time we're doing the Metaverse podcast.
Absolutely.
Why don't you read out where you can find us? We're going to be doing a few. We've got topic ideas lined up. They are they're on the website. You can see what we're going to be talking about these next couple weeks. But we're also open to questions, ideas from other people. If there's a big idea you think we should discuss, or something maybe we missed in our discussion that you think is relevant, or just you feel like getting in on kind of the conversation, you can mail us. You can check out the various websites, which, Sean, why don't you fire off those websites you can find us at?
Okay, so the website is the-meta-verse.com. Also follow us on Instagram at the_meta_verse. And you could also tweet us on Twitter at the same tag as the_meta_verse.
Instagram, we're gonna have to get some pictures up.
Oh, I have one, but I only have one.
Maybe I'll take one of my dog and stuff too. We'll get some of the.
Yeah.
We'll have to do maybe for Instagram we can kind of get a variety of pictures about us or kind of our setup maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe some of our I could take a picture of my room, like my working environment and stuff, and maybe some of the different spots I like to go. I've got a couple pictures where I take Bradley places and just some of my influence.
Yeah.
I think it'd
be cool if I come with you some of these places, just because I want to get out more. So.
Well, but a bit more of a background on me. Like I was in the local search and rescue, and I've been an avid camper and hiker. Like for me, I find a lot of meaning and purpose when I explore the woods and stuff. I feel like a connection to something greater than myself, and a gratitude, a sense of gratitude for myself, and looking up at the stars and swimming in lakes and stuff like that, going on hikes, smelling the forest and things like that. That's big for me. And having a dog helps. So I take the dog out all the time for these hikes. So I'll take you on some of these, and
Perfect.
I can take some pictures and kind of just show the influence. Also, we're going to be putting up some reading lists. Like, so I'm going to try to incorporate some of my influences. You know, like we've got these ideas, but like we're no geniuses in any sense. Like, you know, I've got influences. I've been taught by certain people, and you know, I've recognized different geniuses that I've come across, usually through writing, sometimes through conversation and stuff. And I've tried to model my thinking off these people who I admire in those fields, right? Maybe one day we'll talk about admiration and influence.
I was going to say
It
role
kind of
models.
connects.
Role models, and like
Totally.
there was another topic. I have it somewhere. I'm going to find it, but yeah.
Role models, maybe even how we're perceived as role models sometimes, right? Like, I think a lot of people look to different people and they don't even really quite know it. Like, they don't necessarily know that they're an influence. But I think all of us have an influence on somebody. And I think that's important in this discussion of butterfly effect and domino theory too. Like, the influence we have, like I was saying with the children and stuff, like, we're creating this domino effect right now. We're sometimes that butterfly flapping, right? To think that I have an effect in a forever type sense, or even in just a series of events. I've always thought about this theory, actually, not theory, analogy, I guess I'd say, in that every action we take is kind of like throwing a stone in a pond. And every one action creates so many ripples, and it changes the very fabric of an entire pool, like moving from inward outward.
Well, that would be a domino effect.
Yeah, that's
But then, like, if you add another ripple, or like another ripple into it, like another pond, rock in the pond, that would be a butterfly effect. Because
would it?
Yeah, because the two you could predict the ripples.
Yeah.
But if you add another ripple,
it creates
so many ripples you can't predict it anymore.
Well, anyways, so much to talk about, so much to say. Also, so check out the metaverse at.
Did I plug yours?
Yeah, I'm just gonna. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll just say mine too. So the-meta-verse.com. That's our website, as well as Instagram and Twitter. But also, I update my own blog. I've been doing a blog for a year now. Quick reads, easy reads, with pictures, so you can kind of get a better sense of who I am if you check this blog out, and the type of thinking I'm tuned to. It's all practical stuff. I really see, like, and why I want to do this podcast is we're trying to look at things through a gratitude lens, right? And I have found that this is a very difficult time in our society, in our life. Like, you know, we live in a town where I see, you know, drug addiction skyrocketing, and like depression and suicide rates are going up, and like just this general like uncertainness in our society and culture right now. And I'm trying to look at how positive living can really change people, and I'm just trying to offer positive perspectives through various ideas. So if you want to check out my website, the blog is www.generationofbrokenhearts.com. Just spelt like it is, generation of broken hearts with an S. .com.
Yeah.
And we are going to
wrap
this up and come at you with a new topic next time.